The phone rang at 11:57 p.m. inside the execution chamber. Everything was already in motion. The witnesses had been seated behind the glass for nearly half an hour, watching the room in silence. The straps lay flat on the gurney, waiting. The medical team stood where they had stood dozens of times before, their movements practiced, minimal, almost rehearsed. On death row, timing is everything, and that night, the clock was the loudest thing in the building. When the call came in, it didn't sound dramatic. It never does. No alarms, no shouting, just a quiet interruption that cut through a process designed to feel unstoppable. For a moment, nobody moved. Not because they didn't know what to do, but because everyone understood what that call might mean and what it usually didn't. In prisons that carry out executions, delays are rare, but they are never simple. They don't bring relief. They don't offer closure. What they do instead is stretch time in a way that feels almost cruel. When an execution is delayed at the last minute, the system doesn't reset. It tightens. To understand why this single day can become the longest day of a person's life, you have to go back nearly 24 hours earlier, to the moment the condemned wakes up knowing that unless something changes, this will be their final sunrise. On death row, the night before an execution is not quiet. It is controlled. Officers rotate more frequently. Supervisors double-check schedules that have already been checked dozens of times. Paperwork moves from one desk to another, signatures confirming procedures that were finalized months or even years earlier. The prison does not act like something dramatic is about to happen. That calm is intentional. Routine keeps emotions from spilling over. For the inmate, routine feels different. They wake early, often before dawn, not because they slept well, but because sleep doesn't come easily when the date is no longer theoretical. In the weeks leading up to an execution, the mind lives in two places at once. The past, replayed endlessly, and the clock, counting down whether you want it to or not. Guards approach the cell with a different posture that morning. Not hostile, not sympathetic, just precise. Every movement is logged. Every interaction is observed. The condemned is informed again of the schedule, even though they already know it by heart. Meals are offered, though many refuse them. Some eat anyway, slowly, as if the act itself anchors them to something normal. This is also the morning when legal teams make their last serious push. Appeals at this stage are not dramatic courtroom scenes. They are emails, phone calls, emergency motions filed in quiet offices far from the prison walls. Lawyers know the odds. Everyone does. But when you are dealing with irreversible punishment, even a 1% chance is something you chase until the very end. Back inside the prison, word spreads faster than officials would like to admit. Death row inmates are isolated, but they are not disconnected. Through shared walls, through passing glances during escorted movement, through subtle changes in guard behavior, they know when someone's date has arrived. Some will tap quietly on the walls in acknowledgement. Others remain silent, choosing distance as their way of coping. By midday, the atmosphere shifts. This is when preparations become visible. The condemned is often moved to a holding cell closer to the execution chamber, sometimes called the death watch cell. It is not a punishment cell. It is cleaner, brighter, and closer to staff. This move is procedural, but emotionally it is massive. It removes the final illusion of time. From this point on, the inmate is rarely alone. Guards remain nearby at all times. Mental health staff may check in, not to provide therapy, but to assess stability. The system needs the person to remain compliant, conscious, and medically viable. These checks are not about comfort. They are about protocol. As the afternoon wears on, family notifications intensify. Relatives who have chosen to witness the execution receive final confirmations. Others receive calls they have been dreading for years. On the opposite side of the case, victims' families prepare as well, each carrying their own complicated mix of anticipation, pain, and uncertainty. What most people don't realize is that the prison prepares for a delay and an execution at the same time. While one team prepares the chamber, another monitors legal channels. A court order can arrive minutes before midnight. Governors can issue stays late in the evening. Higher courts can intervene unexpectedly. But for every delay that makes headlines, there are dozens of last-minute appeals that fail quietly. As evening approaches, the condemned is allowed final phone calls. These conversations are monitored but not interrupted. Some are filled with apologies. Others avoid the subject entirely. Laughter sometimes appears, not because the moment is light, but because humans reach for normalcy when everything else feels unbearable. The guards listening and do not comment. Many have done this before. Many will do it again. The job requires emotional distance, but distance doesn't mean immunity. Officers know the sound of a goodbye that isn't coming back. By 9 p.m., the prison is locked into execution mode. Movement stops. Non-essential staff leave secured areas. Witnesses arrive and are escorted through corridors most inmates never see. Their phones are collected. Their names are checked against lists that have been reviewed repeatedly. No one rushes. Rushing is how mistakes happen. The condemned is informed of the final timeline. Even now, they are not told that a delay is impossible. Officials avoid absolutes. Experience has taught them better. This is where time begins to behave strangely. Minutes feel longer. Conversations slow. Every sound becomes noticeable. Keys shifting on belts. Doors closing somewhere down the corridor. The hum of fluorescent lights. For the person awaiting execution, there is no distraction strong enough to block the awareness of what is coming. Then, just before midnight, when the process seems inevitable, the phone rings. That call doesn't announce itself as hope. It doesn't come with certainty. It is simply information. A court has agreed to review something. A judge has asked for clarification. A legal question, unresolved until now, has resurfaced at the worst possible moment. Inside the execution area, everything stops, but nothing relaxes. The witnesses are asked to remain seated. The condemned is not returned to their cell. The medical team stays in place. The warden makes additional calls, confirming what the delay means and how long it might last. Minutes pass, then more minutes. This is the part people rarely talk about. A delay is not freedom. It is suspension. The condemned remains in restraints or close supervision. They are not told how long the delay will last. It could be 10 minutes. It could be hours. It could be temporary, leading right back to the chamber. For the inmate, the mind has already crossed a threshold. Preparing for death is not something you can turn off and on. Once you believe the end is seconds away, being told to wait again doesn't restore calm. It deepens the psychological strain. Some inmates break down at this stage. Others go silent. Some ask the same question repeatedly. Is it over? The answer is never simple. Guards maintain neutral expressions, but inside, tension rises. A delayed execution means extended shifts, extended responsibility, and the knowledge that whatever happens next will be scrutinized by courts, media, and history. Every action from this point forward matters. As midnight passes, the clock resets, but nothing else does. The execution is no longer scheduled for tonight, but it has not been canceled either. Everyone involved is now trapped in a waiting period that has no clear endpoint. The condemned is returned to a holding cell, but not to normal confinement. Death watch continues. Lights stay on. Checks are constant. This is why people who have lived through a last-minute delay often describe it as worse than the execution date itself. Hope arrives, but it arrives wounded. As the night stretches into early morning, legal teams wait for responses. Judges deliberate. Governors are briefed. Inside the prison, staff rotate quietly, careful not to signal optimism or despair. And the inmate waits. Waiting becomes the punishment. Every sound could mean the delay has ended. Every footstep could signal movement back toward the chamber. Sleep is impossible. The body remains alert, flooded with stress hormones that don't fade just because the clock has moved forward. By sunrise, the longest day has already begun. What happens next depends on forces far beyond the prison walls, but the damage of that delay has already been done. The system may pause, but the human mind does not reset so easily. And as the new day unfolds, one question hangs over everyone involved. Was the execution truly stopped or merely postponed? If you want to understand what happens inside the prison during the hours that follow, how hope, fear, and procedure collide, you'll want to stay with this story, because the next chapter reveals what a delay actually turns into when the clock starts ticking all over again. When morning comes after a delayed execution, it doesn't feel like a new day. It feels like unfinished business. The sun rises outside the prison walls, but inside, the atmosphere is heavier than it was the night before. No announcement is made. No one says the word reprieve. The condemned is still on death watch, still under constant supervision, still suspended between two outcomes that feel equally unbearable. This is the moment when hope becomes dangerous, not because it exists, but because it might disappear again without warning. If you're still here, stay with this part of the story, because this is where delays stop being legal events and start becoming psychological ones. The first thing that happens is silence. Not the peaceful kind, the strained kind. Phones don't ring as often now. Legal teams wait. Courts deliberate. Inside the prison, staff receive updates in fragments, never the full picture. No one wants to promise anything that might be undone an hour later. The inmate is informed that the execution has been delayed pending further review. Those words are chosen carefully. Delayed is not stopped. Pending is not resolved. The language leaves the door open, and that door is all the mind can focus on. This is when the body reacts. After preparing for death, the nervous system doesn't know how to stand down. Adrenaline lingers. Hands shake. Thoughts race. Some inmates ask for water repeatedly. Others pace the limited space of the holding cell until a guard gently tells them to sit. Mental health staff may check in again, but there is no protocol for reversing existential fear. And here's something most people don't realize. The prison does not slow down. Meals are delivered on schedule. Counts are conducted. Logs are filled out. The system keeps moving because it has to. Pausing emotionally would create cracks, and cracks lead to mistakes. If you've ever wondered how institutions can carry out something this heavy repeatedly, this is how: by refusing to acknowledge the wait until the process is complete. For the condemned, the hours crawl. Every guard shift change brings new faces, each one a reminder that time is passing but the outcome isn't changing. Some officers avoid eye contact. Others speak normally, discussing mundane things as if nothing unusual is happening. Neither approach feels comforting. Family members are often the next to be affected. Those who traveled to witness the execution wake up in hotels unsure whether to return to the prison or go home. Some are told to remain on standby. Others receive no instruction at all. Phones are checked constantly. Sleep is impossible. The emotional whiplash hits hard. Grief paused. Hope introduced. Fear returning. On the other side, victims' families experience their own version of this limbo. Closure, something they were told would come on a specific date, is now delayed. Anger surfaces. Confusion grows. For them too, the waiting becomes its own burden. If you're watching this and thinking delays sound merciful, this is the part you need to understand. Delays do not undo the sentence. They stretch it. As midday approaches, the prison receives updates, but not answers. A court may request additional briefing. A judge may ask for clarification on a technical issue. None of this means the execution won't happen. It simply means the clock is being recalibrated. The inmate is told very little. Officials avoid sharing information that could later change. Hope, when given and taken away, leaves deeper scars than none at all. This is when memory becomes a battlefield. Some inmates revisit every decision they ever made, convinced there must be something they missed, something that could still save them. Others shut down, conserving emotional energy like a resource that might be needed later. Some pray, some don't. Some talk to guards, asking questions they already know the answers to, just to hear another human voice. If you've made it this far, don't drop off now, because this next phase reveals how fragile the idea of justice becomes when timing replaces certainty. Behind the scenes, officials prepare for two outcomes simultaneously. If the delay becomes a stay, procedures must be unwound. Witnesses notified. Media statements drafted. Legal documentation finalized. But if the delay is lifted, the execution must resume quickly, sometimes within hours. The system is designed for efficiency, not emotional recovery. This dual preparation creates tension among staff. Officers discuss possibilities quietly, careful not to speculate too openly. Supervisors review protocols again. Medical teams remain on standby. No one leaves. No one relaxes. Everyone understands that whatever happens next will define their day, and possibly their career. The condemned feels this tension even without being told. Small cues give it away. The way guards move, the way radios crackle, the way doors open and close. Every detail becomes a potential signal. Sleep, if it comes at all, is shallow and broken. By afternoon, the weight of uncertainty becomes physical. Headaches, nausea, chest tightness. These are not exaggerations. They are documented reactions to extreme stress. The body, having braced for death, doesn't know how to process postponement. It remains in survival mode, waiting for the threat to return. This is when some inmates ask the hardest questions. Will I have to go through this again? No one answers directly. Because the truth is, many do. Delayed executions are often rescheduled quickly, sometimes within days, sometimes weeks, occasionally months. Rarely are they canceled entirely. The condemned learns that surviving the night did not mean escaping the sentence. It only meant extending the wait. If you're still watching, this is where the story tightens, because as the afternoon fades, pressure builds on the legal system to decide. Judges do not like indecision in capital cases. Delays attract scrutiny. Media attention increases. Public interest spikes. Somewhere far from the prison, decisions are being weighed that will determine whether this delay becomes permanent or painfully temporary. Inside the prison, no one announces when news arrives. It trickles. A supervisor steps into an office. A phone call lasts longer than usual. A guard returns with a different expression. The inmate notices everything. When you have nothing but time, perception sharpens. As evening approaches again, the possibility everyone has avoided starts to feel real. What if the execution is back on? This thought doesn't arrive gently. It crashes. The mind replays the previous night, the restraints, the chamber, the phone ringing at the last possible moment. The idea of repeating that experience feels unbearable, but repetition is exactly what the system allows. If you're invested now, stay with it, because this is the moment where delayed executions reveal their darkest truth. They teach the condemned how close death can come. They remove uncertainty about the process itself. Next time, there will be no novelty, no disbelief, only recognition. As night falls again, the prison waits. The condemned waits. Families wait. And the clock, once reset, begins counting down all over again, whether anyone wants it to or not. In the next chapter, the delay either hardens into something permanent or collapses, forcing everyone back into motion. What happens next shows how fragile hope becomes when it's built on legal minutes instead of human mercy. Don't look away now. By the third day after a delayed execution, time no longer feels linear. It folds in on itself. Inside the prison, the condemned has now lived through something most people never imagine. Preparing to die, stopping at the edge, and waking up to do it all again, without knowing when the next edge will appear. This is the stage where delayed executions stop being legal stories and become endurance tests. If you're still here, don't drift now. This is where the waiting begins to change people. The holding cell is still brightly lit. Death watch has not been lifted. Guards continue their checks, sometimes every 15 minutes, sometimes more frequently if the inmate appears unstable. These checks are logged meticulously, not just for safety, but for accountability. Every minute matters now. What has changed is not the procedure, it's the mindset. On the first day, the condemned was bracing for an ending. On the second, they were balancing fragile hope against crushing doubt. By the third, something colder settles in, realization. The system can do this again. And again, sleep deprivation becomes a problem. Even when the body finally shuts down from exhaustion, sleep is shallow. Dreams are fragmented. Many wake suddenly, convinced they missed something, convinced the delay has ended without notice. Guards are used to this. They respond calmly, grounding the inmate back in the present, never confirming more than they have to. For the inmate, trust in time disappears. Morning no longer signals safety. Night no longer signals danger. The clock has proven unreliable. The only constant is uncertainty. This is when lawyers re-enter the picture in a different way. Emergency appeals have either been denied, paused, or escalated. Now the process shifts into review mode. Courts request records. Judges ask for clarification. Briefs are exchanged. Everything slows down, but the sentence remains intact. If you're watching this and wondering why delays aren't just cancellations, this is why. The legal system is designed to correct itself carefully, not quickly. Precision takes time. And time, in this context, is the punishment. Family communication becomes more complicated. Some families, exhausted and emotionally drained, stop answering their phones. Others call constantly, desperate for updates no one can provide. Conversations circle the same questions. Do you know anything? Has it been decided? When will this end? No one has answers. On the victim's side, patience thins. Public statements are prepared. Advocacy groups weigh in. Pressure builds quietly but steadily. The delay has shifted the case back into public space, and public space is not kind to uncertainty. Inside the prison, staff feel it too. Executions are rare, but delays are rarer, and more disruptive. Schedules are altered. Overtime increases. Emotional fatigue sets in. Officers who expected closure now face prolonged responsibility. Some cope by detaching further. Others struggle silently. No one talks about it openly. This silence is intentional. Acknowledging the emotional toll would mean admitting the system affects those who enforce it. Institutions don't like that conversation. For the condemned, the third day introduces a new fear: normalization. The extraordinary has become routine. Being on death watch feels almost normal now. The cell, the checks, the constant observation. This is dangerous territory psychologically. When the mind adapts to extreme stress, it can either fracture or harden. Some inmates become eerily calm. Not peaceful, resigned. They stop asking questions. Stop reacting to updates. Stop engaging beyond what is required. Guards note this shift carefully. Calm can mean acceptance, but it can also signal emotional shutdown. Mental health staff increase their monitoring. Their goal is not to help the inmate process death. It's to ensure they remain competent. The system requires participation. Even at the end, consent is procedural, not emotional. If you're still following this, pay attention here, because this is where the idea of mercy becomes complicated. A delay suggests reconsideration, but reconsideration does not equal compassion. It simply means the system is checking itself one more time before moving forward. As the day stretches on, rumors circulate quietly among staff. Maybe a stay is coming. Maybe the delay will be lifted tonight. Maybe nothing will happen for weeks. None of this is confirmed. Speculation fills the vacuum where certainty should be. The inmate senses the shift. They ask fewer questions now, but listen more carefully. Tone matters. Body language matters. Even silence matters. When a guard avoids eye contact, it feels meaningful. When a supervisor lingers, it feels ominous. This hyper-awareness is exhausting. By late afternoon, the body shows signs of strain. Appetite disappears. Muscles ache from tension. Headaches persist. Stress hormones remain elevated. This is not something you recover from with rest. It is cumulative. This is also when the condemned starts thinking about the next time. Not abstractly. Specifically, what will be different? Will the phone ring again? Will there be a delay or not? Surviving once doesn't feel like victory. It feels like rehearsal. If you're still here, don't click away, because what happens next explains why delayed executions leave scars that never fade. Behind the scenes, decisions are narrowing. Judges do not like prolonged uncertainty in capital cases. Every delay invites scrutiny. Every pause invites debate. At some point, a line must be drawn, either granting a stay or clearing the path forward. The prison prepares quietly. Equipment remains ready. Staff are briefed on potential timelines. Witness lists are kept current. Nothing is announced, but nothing is dismantled either. The system stays coiled. The inmate feels the tension return. Even without confirmation, the air changes. Conversations shorten. Movement increases. Radios crackle more often. The condemned recognizes the signs now. They've seen this movie before. This time, there is no disbelief, only dread. As evening approaches, the question that has hovered for days becomes unavoidable. Is tonight the night again? The condemned is informed that a decision may come soon. The word "may" does a lot of damage here. It offers hope and fear in equal measure. It keeps the mind spinning. Family members receive similar messages. Be available. Stay reachable. Don't travel too far. Wait. Waiting becomes the shared experience across every side of the case. If you're still watching, this is where the emotional toll peaks, because anticipation, once reignited, hits harder the second time. The condemned begins preparing again, whether they want to or not. Mental rehearsals restart. Goodbyes replay. The mind goes back to the chamber, the straps, the silence. Even if nothing happens tonight, the preparation itself is trauma. This is the hidden cost of delays. They don't just postpone death. They multiply it psychologically. As night falls for the third time, the prison holds its breath. No one announces what will happen next, but everyone knows that the window is closing. A decision is coming, one way or another. In the next chapter, that decision arrives. And when it does, it reveals whether delays offer genuine reconsideration or simply prolong the inevitable. Stay with it. By the fourth chapter of a delayed execution, the waiting stops feeling passive. It becomes active pressure. Something is coming. Everyone inside the prison can feel it. The condemned notices it first in the smallest details. Guards speak less. Movement becomes more deliberate. Radios are checked more often. Doors that usually stay closed are opened briefly, then shut again. These are not dramatic signals. But when you have lived inside uncertainty for days, subtle shifts become impossible to ignore. This is the moment where hope and fear stop taking turns and begin existing at the same time. The inmate is informed that a decision is imminent. No timeline, no guarantee, just the word imminent. That word carries weight. It means the delay is no longer open-ended. It means the legal system has reached the edge of its patience. If you're still following this story, don't step away now. This is where delayed executions reveal their true purpose. Not mercy, not punishment, but control. Behind the scenes, the case has narrowed to a few remaining questions. Technical details, jurisdictional authority, procedural timing. None of it sounds emotional. Yet every word on those pages determines whether a human being will live another day or not. Judges are aware of the attention. Delayed executions draw scrutiny from every angle: media, advocacy groups, political offices. No decision is made lightly at this stage, but no decision can be postponed forever. Inside the prison, leadership meets quietly. Contingency plans are reviewed again. Staff assignments are confirmed. Everyone is told to be ready without being told for what. The condemned is moved, but only slightly. Sometimes it's a transfer back to a death watch cell closer to the chamber. Sometimes it's increased supervision where they already are. Either way, the message is clear without being spoken. The pause may be ending. The body reacts instantly. Heart rate increases. Breathing changes. The mind, which had learned to survive the wait, now has to prepare again for finality. This is the cruelest part of a delay. The requirement to restart a process the brain never fully recovered from the first time. If you've ever wondered why people describe delayed executions as torment, this is the answer. The inmate asks fewer questions now, not because they don't care, but because answers no longer help. Knowing doesn't soften what's coming. It only sharpens it. Mental health staff check in again, their tone careful, neutral. They assess orientation, awareness, coherence. The questions are routine, but the context is not. The inmate answers calmly, sometimes too calmly. Notes are taken. Boxes are checked. The system needs the person stable. Family contact becomes urgent. Calls are made. Messages are passed. Some families are told to prepare for movement. Others are warned that plans may change quickly. Emotions that had been frozen during the delay begin to thaw. And with that thaw comes pain. On the victim's side, emotions intensify as well. For some, the delay has felt like denial. For others, it has reopened wounds they thought were finally closing. Statements are drafted. Expectations are recalibrated again. Everyone involved is exhausted. This is something few people outside the process ever see. Delayed executions don't just strain the condemned. They drain everyone orbiting the case. The longer the delay, the heavier the collective weight becomes. If you're still watching, stay locked in, because the next phase is where the system either retreats or advances. As evening approaches, information begins to solidify. A ruling has been drafted. A decision has been reached, though it has not yet been delivered. The prison is notified that a window is opening. Staff are told to remain available. No one is dismissed. The condemned senses it immediately. There is a difference between waiting and waiting with purpose. The air feels tighter. Time speeds up and slows down simultaneously. Every sound feels louder. Every minute feels heavier. This is when memory becomes unavoidable. The inmate remembers the first time they were walked toward the chamber. The sound of their footsteps. The way the hallway narrowed. The way voices became softer. That memory, once distant, now feels close enough to touch. If the execution resumes, it will not feel new. It will feel inevitable. Guards prepare themselves quietly. Many have been through this once already with the same inmate. Doing it again feels different. Familiarity does not reduce gravity. It increases it. Some officers switch into pure procedure mode, focusing only on steps and timing. Others grow quieter. No one jokes. No one lingers. As night falls, the prison reaches a strange stillness. This is not calm. It is anticipation. The condemned is informed that a final decision is expected soon. Again, no promises. Again, no certainty. Just the knowledge that the pause is ending. This is where hope becomes dangerous. Hope now has shape. It has boundaries. It is either about to be confirmed or erased. There is no longer room for imagination. Only outcomes remain. If you've stayed this long, you understand something most people never will. Delays do not soften execution, they sharpen it. The inmate waits. Minutes pass, then more minutes. Every time footsteps approach, muscles tense. Every time they pass, tension lingers. The body no longer knows how to stand down. Finally, the message arrives. Not shouted, not announced publicly, delivered quietly, the way most life-altering information is. The decision is in. What that decision is depends on forces far beyond the prison, but the way it lands is always the same. It arrives like a weight, pressing down on every person involved at once. If it is a stay, procedures must unwind carefully. If it is not, the process restarts immediately. There is no emotional buffer, no recovery time. The system moves forward because it must. The condemned receives the news. This moment defines everything that comes next. Some react visibly. Others don't react at all. Silence can mean relief, shock, or resignation. Guards are trained not to interpret. They observe and proceed. If the execution is back on, the pace accelerates. Timelines are reset. Witnesses are notified again. Medical teams reassemble. The chamber is prepared once more. Everything that paused now resumes with urgency. This is where the delay shows its final cost. The condemned must now walk the same path twice, with full awareness of every step. If you're still here, don't look away, because the next chapter takes you into what happens when the delay ends and the system demands closure, no matter how much damage has already been done. The longest day is almost over, but the final hours are still ahead. The final hours of a delayed execution feel like something outside time. Minutes stretch into eternities. Every heartbeat becomes measurable, every step echoing. The condemned, who has now lived through days of uncertainty, braces for the final movement, fully aware that there may be no more delays. The prison hums with quiet tension. Staff are in position, following procedures practiced countless times, yet each execution carries its own weight. Even the most routine motions feel magnified. Doors close more softly than usual. The hum of fluorescent lights seems louder, and footsteps resonate in corridors that had already witnessed hours of waiting. Family members, who have waited in hotels or nearby rooms for days, are finally allowed back to designated areas. Some are trembling, some are quiet, some stare blankly, trying to prepare for a moment they have rehearsed in their minds but can never fully accept. Their presence is procedural, yet emotionally it is explosive. For the condemned, seeing familiar faces, even through barriers, stirs memories of life, freedom, and choices long gone. Mental health staff make their last check-ins. These assessments are not for comfort. They are to ensure that the condemned is coherent, alert, and compliant. Questions are asked softly, neutrally, without commentary or reassurance. Even the smallest movement, a blink too long or a pause in breathing, is logged and noted. Every gesture carries meaning, even when no one says it aloud. The atmosphere is heavy, yet meticulously organized. Witnesses are seated, cameras are positioned, and the chamber is prepared as though the events of the last days never happened. Everything is procedural, everything precise, everything final. Staff double-check each step. Medical teams verify readiness. Officers observe in silence. The clock ticks down with a cruel accuracy. Inside, the condemned reflects on the days that led to this moment. The first delay, the agonizing waits, the repeated movements between hope and fear, they have all etched themselves into the mind. Memories of conversations, phone calls, and last meals are replayed like a film no one asked to see. The mind is exhausted, but clarity emerges. There is a single focus now. What comes next cannot be changed. Outside the prison, the world watches quietly. The media, advocacy groups, and public attention swirl in the background, but within the walls, everything narrows to procedure and presence. This is the culmination of days, weeks, and years. It is a moment suspended between law and life, between consequence and finality. As the execution proceeds, the condemned is moved to the chamber. Steps are deliberate. Movements are guided, precise. The weight of delay hangs heavily in every action. Time seems both swift and stagnant, compressed into each heartbeat and each breath. The lessons of waiting are immediate. Certainty is fleeting, and preparation never erases fear. The final hours are marked by observation. Every reaction is measured, every glance recorded. Staff maintain protocol, never expressing judgment, never offering solace. Witnesses absorb the gravity of what has unfolded. Family members grapple with finality. Inside, the condemned experiences the stark reality of delay. Days of suspension have intensified awareness rather than dulled it. If you're following this story to the end, it is important to see what delay has taught everyone involved. For the staff, it underscores the precision and rigor required. For the families, it magnifies the emotional toll. For the condemned, it amplifies the weight of each second. Time resumes its relentless march. Decisions made in the courts, the procedural checks, and the final notifications converge to complete the process. The pause that once seemed like hope now feels like an interlude in an otherwise predetermined path. Nothing about the experience softens its gravity. And when it is over, when the process has concluded, the prison returns to routine, but nothing within those walls is the same. Delay has left its mark on everyone. Staff carry the weight of responsibility. Families carry the echoes of what they have witnessed. The condemned has endured the most extreme psychological strain a human can experience. For viewers, understanding this sequence shows the profound impact of delay. It is not mercy. It is not escape. It is the intersection of law, procedure, and human endurance. The experience stretches perception, tests resilience, and reshapes understanding of time and consequence. If you've stayed with this story to the end, you now know the cost of delayed execution, not just the official procedure, but the human weight that accompanies every hour, every decision, and every suspended moment. It is a story of anticipation, endurance, and the stark reality of life under constant, inescapable scrutiny. The longest day ends, but its echoes remain.